Okay, sexual violence. Now, a definition by the World Health Organization, or WHO, sexual violence is any unwanted sexual act or attempt using coercion, force, or threat against someone unable to consent, including rape, abuse, and harassment regardless of relationship or setting.
Ketua BEM Nonaktif Universitas Indonesia Melkisedek Huang dijatuhi sanksi administratif.
Wow. That sure was a lot. Okay. So, but we, as in FG6, we are here to explain to you about what it is and dig deeper into it, specifically in this place here, University of Indonesia. Now, because despite the fact it has the title of one of the world university in Indonesia, it still has some issues. Like, you've probably heard of this issue here, or this one here, or maybe the most recent one, this one here. Yes, that infamous guy one. So in that case, we have to dig even deeper, because probably those things that are headlined by the media, those are just the tip of the iceberg. So that's why we're going to continue by doing this interview with a friend of ours. Take it away, Max.
Nama saya Amri dari UI Angkatan 2023.
Oke, mungkin untuk Amri sendiri, boleh saya tahu relasinya dengan korban seperti apa?
Saya memiliki hubungan yang cukup dekat dengan korban. Itu dimulai dari 3 tahun lalu saat kami bekerja di satu panit yang bersamaan, dan kami selama 6 bulan itu bekerja intens dan tiap minggu pasti ketemu. Jadi kami banyak sering banter idea, dan juga kita juga sering cerita tentang satu sama lain. Momen pertama itu di dekat tempat tinggalnya. Saya pertama kali mendengarkan dia cerita itu karena saat kami makan, tiba-tiba dia ngeliat ke suatu orang dan matanya merah dan juga gemetar. Dan juga saya tanya, kamu kenapa? Habis itu dia ngajak saya ke kamarnya untuk dia ceritain tentang semua kejadian itu. Kejadiannya bermula di saat ada laki-laki yang suka kepada korban, dan juga dia istilah ngajak berkenalan dan juga berteman, karena kebetulan korban merupakan orang dari luar Jabodetabek, maka ya dia senang dapat teman baru. Namun tiba-tiba saat korban ngajak kerja sama, yaitu kerja kelompok, tiba-tiba saat korban tertidur, tiba-tiba dia terbangun, kamarnya sudah dikunci dan dia sudah tidak sadar dia diapain saja. Makanya habis itu dia mencoba melupakan kejadian itu. Jadi dia tidak menceritakan detailnya tentu. Dan juga selain itu juga banyak kejadian yang dialami oleh korban yang ternyata dilakukan oleh temannya si pelaku. Seperti ditarik anduknya dan juga lain-lainnya. Kondisi korban terguncang, matanya merah dan juga gemeteran, dan juga dapat dilihat dengan jelas dari matanya dia ketakutan dan juga tidak ingin membicarakan banyak tentang kejadian buruknya itu. Dan juga sampai sekarang korban masih sedikit was-was apabila berkenalan dengan orang baru, karena ia takut menjadi korban lagi. Korban sudah melaporkan kejadian itu dan kronologi berserta screenshot cat-catan gimana dia dilecehkan ke Satgas PPKS beberapa tahun lalu. Namun karena Satgas PPKS waktu itu dibukukan dan juga memang tidak terlalu jalan, maka laporannya dia hanyalah junk box di email doang. Dan juga saat melaporkan di fakultasnya dia tidak terlalu digubris, dan bahkan yang harusnya mengurusi itu juga ternyata juga ada perasaan ke dia yang buruk lah. Dan juga ketika dia melapor ke aparat, dia ditolak karena memang ternyata pelakunya punya koneksi ke aparat, dan dia intinya udah nyoba semua cara.
Oke.
Untuk environment di kampus kita memang relatif aman, karena most of the time kejadian tersebut terjadi di luar kampus ataupun di lingkungan sekitar kampus. Namun ya tetap saja untuk kejadian yang dari tadi saya sampaikan itu kejadiannya banyak yang di dalam kampus. Ada yang pengendaliannya cukup baik karena korban mendapatkan pendampingan dan juga pelaku mendapatkan sanksi yang tegas, namun juga banyak yang pelaku yang masih menduduki jabatan-jabatan strategis di organisasi kampus. Dan juga untuk preventif dari kampus UI belum terlihat langkah yang signifikan, namun langkah yang untuk preventif biasanya dilakukan oleh organisasi mahasiswa dalam tingkatan manapun, tapi tidak oleh kampus itu sendiri. Cuma satu, yaitu sanksi tegas, entah langsung di drop out ataupun diblokir dari organisasi, dan jangan cuman tiba-tiba diturunkan atau enggak dicutikan saja. Jadi saya harapkan langkah yang konkret dan tegas apabila memang ia terbukti bersalah secara jelas.
Oke, terima kasih ya Saudara Amri atas waktunya dan kesempatannya udah mau melaksanakan interview dengan kelompok kami. Semoga sehat terus. Terima kasih.
Oke.
Okay, so that was the interview. And now it's time to crunch some numbers.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we start, introduce my name is Muhammad Rehan Ramadan from Electrical Engineering, and this study use a mixed method approach, combining quantitative data from a questionnaire completed by 65 University Indonesia students and qualitative data from an in-depth interview with a close acquaintance of a sexual violence survivor. After briefly explaining the data collection process, we will now move directly into the findings, starting with the quantitative results. Okay, this slide presents an overview of the respondents involved in the quantitative survey. In total, 65 active Universitas Indonesia students participated in this study, coming from various faculties, enrollment years, and gender backgrounds. This diversity allows the data to represent perspectives from different student cohorts across the university. It is also important to note that all respondents participated voluntarily and without any form of coercion, which is especially crucial given the sensitive nature of the topic. This ensures that the data collected is ethically sound and reliable. With this respondent profile in mind, we now move to the first analytical section, which focuses on students' knowledge about sexual violence. These slides focus on students' knowledge regarding sexual violence. The data show that conceptual understanding among students is relatively high, as more than 90% of respondents report that they understand the definition of sexual violence and are able to identify its different forms. However, this level of awareness decreases significantly when the question shifts from general understanding to institutional mechanisms. Only 58.4% of respondents are aware of Satgas PPKS UI, and this number drops further when it comes to procedural knowledge, with only 33.9% knowing the official reporting channels. In addition, fewer than 30% of respondents find information about reporting procedures easy to access, and nearly two-thirds believe that UI doesn't provide sufficient education about sexual violence. These findings indicate that while students understand the issue conceptually, many lack practical knowledge on how to respond with the institutional systems. After examining what students know, we now move to how they perceive sexual violence and the institutional response at UI. Okay, these slides present students' perceptions of sexual violence at Universitas Indonesia. The data show a strong consensus regarding the severity of the issue, with over 90% of respondents agreeing that sexual violence is a serious problem on campus. Despite this shared awareness, confidence in institutional response remains low. Fewer than 30% of respondents believe that sexual violence cases are handled fairly by the university, and less than half feel safe from the risk of sexual violence on campus. Furthermore, most respondents perceive that the education provided by UI on sexual violence is insufficient. This contrast suggests that although students recognize the seriousness of the issue, their trust in institutional handling and preventive capacity is limited. After understanding these perceptions, we now turn to students' direct exposure to sexual violence cases. Okay, these slides examine student exposure to sexual violence cases involving Universitas Indonesia students. Almost all respondents, 96.9%, have heard about such cases, indicating that sexual violence is not a hidden issue but a widely known reality within the campus community. Most respondents learn about these cases through informal channels, particularly friends or acquaintances. While social media also plays a significant role in spreading information, in contrast, only 40% of respondents receive information through official faculty or university statements. This pattern highlights a reliance on informal communication rather than institutional sources. Knowing that many students are exposed to these cases, and we next look at how people around survivors tend to respond. Okay, as you can see from this slide focuses on how people around survival respond when a sexual violence case occurs. The data show that supportive reactions are the most common, with 66.2% of respondents indicating that people around the survival provided emotional support. Formal reporting does occur in some cases, as 40% reported that authorities or UE units were contacted. However, a significant portion of respondents, nearly a quarter, stated that people around the survivor didn't know how to help. Although less frequent, negative responses such as blaming the survivor or encouraging silence still appear, indicating that stigma and misinformation have not been fully eliminated. After examining these responses, we now explore how likely students themselves are to take specific actions when they become aware of a case. Okay, based on these quantitative findings, UI students demonstrate a high level of awareness and concern regarding sexual violence as reflected in their strong understanding of its definition, form, and seriousness. However, this awareness is not matched by adequate institutional accessibility and trust. Knowledge of reporting mechanism, confidence in fair case handling, perception of campus safety, and evaluation of educational sufficiently remain low. Although students tend to respond with empathy and are willing to take supportive actions, uncertainty about formal procedures and limited trust in institutional mechanisms hinders effective reporting and collective response. These results indicate that the core challenge lies not in student awareness, but in the inadequacy of perceived and unreliability of institutional support structures designed to address sexual violence. And then we move to the qualitative data. Okay, this slide presents key statements from the victim's narrative, obtained through the in-depth interview before. The incident occurred within a close and trusted social relationship formed through organizational activities, showing that violence emerged from a context of trust rather than a random encounter. The victim experienced loss of awareness and control, only realizing what had happened after waking up in a locker room, and initially chose to suppress and avoid detailing the experience as a coping mechanism. Beyond the initial incident, the victim faced repeated harassment by individuals connected to the perpetrator, which intensified the psychological impact. Clear signs of trauma were observed, including fear, trembling, emotional distress, and long-term anxiety. The victim attempted to report the case through multiple formal channels, including Satgas PPKS, faculty authorities, and law enforcement. Yet, these attempts didn't result in meaningful protection or resolution. From this experience, several broader issues become apparent. And then we move to the emerging issues and patterns on the right side. So, this part summarizes the key issues that emerge from the qualitative findings. Sexual violence is embedded in trusted social relationships, making it more difficult to recognize and resist. The harm experienced by the victim was prolonged due to repeated harassment and a lack of timely intervention. Reporting mechanism, instead of providing protection, become a source of secondary harm through neglect and rejection. In addition, power imbalance limited accountability and allowed perpetrators to avoid consequences. Finally, although the campus is often perceived as relatively safe, unsafe experiences continue to occur within and around the university environment. This pattern led us to the core causes identified in this study. And then we move to the final part, which is the root cause conclusion of the qualitative data. Okay, so this part presents the root cause conclusion based on the qualitative analysis. The findings indicate that the core problem is not a lack of awareness among students, but the failure of institutional system to provide protection, accountability, and trust. Weak reporting mechanisms, power imbalance, and inconsistent institutional response reinforce victim silence and enable impunity, allowing sexual violence to persist. And then we will move to the next part, which is solution that will explain by my friend Amara.
My name is Amara Kaila, and now I will explain about our analysis from our survey. Now I will summarize the key findings from our data combining quantitative survey results and a qualitative narrative. First, students understand the topic, but not the system. Conceptually, awareness is high. 92.3% of respondents understand the definition of sexual violence and 90.7% can identify its forms. However, awareness drops significantly when we look at the institutional response system. Only 58.4% know Satgas PPKS, only 33.9% know the official reporting channels, and only 27.7% say reporting information is easy to find. This shows a clear gap between general knowledge and practical knowledge of how to seek help. Second, trust is low. Only 29.3% believe that reports are handled fairly, and only 46.2% feel safe on the campus. These numbers suggest that even if students are aware of the issue, they may hesitate to engage with formal reporting due to limited confidence in the system. Third, information is mostly informal. Most students hear about cases through friends or peers for about 89.2% and social media for about 48.5%, while official faculty statements are lower 40%. This indicates that informal networks shape awareness more strongly than official campus communication. Finally, our qualitative findings highlight that reporting can cause secondary harm. In other words, reporting may lead to experiences such as no follow-up, rejection, or additional discomfort. There is also power and protection gap, meaning students may feel unprotected, especially when perpetrators have influence or connections. Building from the key findings, now I will explain about the root causes. The main reason is that the institutional response system is not easy to access, not consistent, and not trusted. First, there is an information barrier. Students do not clearly know where to report or what steps to follow. Second, there is a service quality barrier. Reporting may not provide clear follow-up and can create additional stress, which connects directly to the idea of secondary harm. Third, there is a trust barrier. Low belief in fairness and low feelings of safety reduce willingness to use formal channels. Fourth, there is a communication barrier. Students rely more on friends and social media than on official campus communication. Fifth, there is a power or protection gap. If the perpetrator has power or connection, students may fear the system will not protect them. And this is why it matters. If these root causes are not addressed, cases may remain unreported. Survivors may experience secondary harm when seeking help, and trust will stay low, especially since only 29.3% believe reports are handled fairly and only 46.2% feel safe. As a result, students will continue relying on informal information rather than clear official guidance. Based on the root causes, now I will present 5 solution areas along with an implementation timeline. The first solution is make access clear and easy as a quick win. The main action is create one official sexual violence help hub page as a one-stop source containing a simple reporting flowchart, key context, confidentiality information, FAQs, and support options. Then we place QR codes around campus and link the page on faculty websites and LMS. This directly improves students' ability to identify official channels and find reporting information easily. The second solution is fixed reporting quality to reduce secondary harm. We propose service standards such as first response within 24 until 48 hours and regular updates, for example weekly, plus a secure tracking system to ensure follow-up happens. This is designed to reduce cases where survivors receive no meaningful follow-up and to reduce secondary harm. The third solution is improve community response through bystander guidance. We recommend a simple how to help guide and a short online training of 15 until 30 minutes, focusing on what to say, what not to say, and how to connect survivors to official help. This is important because 24.7% of respondents reported that they do not know how to help. The fourth solution is provide real survivor support through a clear support menu. This includes counseling, medical support, academic accommodations, and legal referrals. Additionally, providing a trained case companion or advocate can guide survivors step by step, reducing confusion and improving protection. And the last one is build trust through accountability. This includes publishing a non-identifying transparency report each semester, such as number of reports, response time, types of support, and general outcomes without revealing names. It also includes conflict of interest safeguards to address the power or protection gap. This is intended to improve trust and fairness starting from the low baseline. Finally, the slide provides a simple timeline. From 0 until 3 months focuses on the Help Hub, QR codes, and official campaign service standards and the bystander guide. From 3 until 9 months focuses on improved tracking, staff training, referrals, and case companions. And 9 until 18 months focuses on transparency reporting and stronger safeguards. That's all from our group. Thank you for listening.